let's say they've been different questions to what I've been asked before. But I quite like it. I quite like it because like pigeons are scary. Like pigeons are scary. I reckon I could take down the big duck. Like
Of all the phrases I did not expect to have on the podcast.
this is like the toughest question I think I've ever been asked. Being fair.
Hello, welcome to the Feeder Series podcast. And you can tell that winter is behind us now, can't you? Because even without a Grand Prix weekend with F2 and F3 in support, we still had a full weekend of Feeder Series action. Donington Park saw British F4, Suzuka had Super Formula, and Interlagos had F4 Brazil. But for today, we're turning our attention to Imola. I'm your host, Jim Kimberley, and this week saw the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine / FRECA and Italian F4 kick off their seasons in style. By my estimations, we had 6 races, 60 qualifying sessions, and approximately 6,000 drivers racing across both championships. And I'm delighted to say we have one of those 6 million racers joining us today. A double DNF won't be the way you'd want to start your season, but hopefully joining the Feeder Series podcast is helping you feel much better. Roman Bilinski, how are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thank you for having me on here. It's my first podcast, so I'm very excited. But yeah, not the weekend I hoped for, but like you said, it's making me feel a bit better being on here. So let's see how it is.
Popping your cherry that way and then saying such flattering remarks, Roman. That's a way to do it. So you're going to go far in the podcast world. And also joining me today is a familiar voice to all. It's a host of our sister show, Transfer Weekly, and perhaps one or two of you have heard him commentating on something called F3 and FRECA this year. Welcome back to the podcast, though, Chris McCarthy. It's been a while.
Hello, I know it's been too long, right? But yes, no, it was really good to be back at the track for the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. I can say it very fast now after a lot of practice, and see all the returning drivers like Roman again, and also meet a lot of new ones because we had 17, I think, new drivers, 16 or 17 new drivers. So yeah, a lot of new faces to meet, but good to see the returning ones as well.
You really enjoyed being there because I know you weren't there for the F3, didn't go out to Bahrain, so getting to the track is amazing. No. And what's better than one FRECA commentator? That's right, 2 fresh off being on site at Imola to provide Italian commentary is our Feeder Series Italian F4 editor, Daniele Spadi. And you were doing Italian F4 for Feeder Series, but you were doing FRECA commentating for Italy, for TV as well. An unforgettable weekend, I imagine.
It truly was. It was actually like the first time for me at a racetrack, not as a fan. So it was like a pretty mental experience, but yeah, it's a really nice environment. Formula Regional is always very nice to watch and to commentate on. So yeah, I'm also really excited to be back on here.
I honestly can't wait to hear more about it. But before we get started, if you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or leave a rating or review if you're listening on Spotify or another podcast platform. And if you happen to be listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, you can take part in the podcast polls we've been running. Last time, we asked who do you think will drive in Yuki Tsunoda's AlphaTauri seat in 2024. This is off the back of talking about Super Formula and a certain Liam Lawson doing so well. We had a real split between YouTube and Spotify for this one. 49% of voters on YouTube thought that Tsunoda would retain his seat, with 27% thinking it should be Liam Lawson. But on Spotify, a role reversal, as 43% of you thought Lawson should get the nod, and 21% said Tsunoda. And thanks to that, we've lost any chance of getting Ayumu Iwasa ever joining the podcast, as he seemed to be completely snubbed. Thanks for that, guys. But maybe we'll get him one day. This week, in honour of FRECA, we of course have to ask who you think the champion will be. You can check out our YouTube channel or scroll down on Spotify to cast your vote, and I'll read out the results in the next episode. And while you're there, if you haven't rated us or subscribed, please take the 10 seconds to do so. It really does help us out. Right, we're going to start with FRECA, and most importantly, everyone at Feeder Series would like to wish Adam Fitzgerald a speedy recovery after his injury. And I'm kind of prefacing this because we've spoken about sausage curbs on the podcast before, and yes, they're a massive problem, but no, we're not going to focus on them this episode because the way that I'll go, we could go for a few hours. Instead, I'm afraid we'll have to start with your races, Roman, because it wasn't the ideal way to start your season. Rather than handing you a leading question, why not just talk through your weekend for us?
Yeah, I mean, I'll also start a bit before the weekend. The pre-season was looking extremely strong for us. We made big improvements in my driving and the car since last year. So we was feeling very confident going into the season. Free practice was strong too. And it was all looking good going into qualifying and the races. And then unfortunately in qualifying, that's where the issues started to rise up. And yeah, from there, it just seemed no matter what we did, how hard we tried, it wasn't going to be our weekend. It's a shame because we showed a lot of potential and things like this happen. But yeah, I mean, a double DNF is for sure not the way we want to start the season, but I know Trident did everything they could do. I did everything I could do, and it was just out of our hands.
So specifically, what was the actual issue that you had across the sessions?
So it was related to a gearbox issue, but we can't actually say exactly what it is. I wish we could because then we wouldn't have had the issue for as long as we did. But no, like I said, I'm sure the car's going to be in pieces and they're going to be checking everything.
Well, the next race always rolls around quick. I know that's the way that FRECA kind of is. So unfortunate for you. We're going to talk more about, obviously, FRECA, and there's loads of audience questions for you as well. So plenty to chew on from your side. But Chris, Cass Havercourt aside, the newcomers are proudly sitting atop the championship standings after the first two races. I looked at the championship and we got Martina Stenson, Andrea Chimiantinelli, Nikhil Bora, and Rafael Camara occupying 4 of the top 5 places, if Wikipedia is right at least. Did you expect to see them get up to speed so fast?
I'd say with Andrea and Rafa, yes, actually. I thought they would hit the ground running. Just because they've raced at Imola before and they were so good out in the Middle East as well. They had a good run there. Kimi was, of course, the champion. Rafa was third in the championship there. So, they're coming into a familiar car, and I thought they would get up to speed pretty quickly. But Martinez, I really do think he was the surprise package of the weekend. 7th in Italian F4 last season. He did a few races out in the Middle East. But no one really expected him, not even through pre-season. It didn't look like he was going to be a driver that would go out and win at the first round. But yeah, a real turn of confidence, a real turn of pace. And even the RSGP team boss said to me, he'd never seen 3 new drivers all on the podium in the very first race, and one of those being a rookie, Martinez. The others not classified as rookies because of their Middle East experience. So yeah, I mean, it was amazing how well he did. I remember him in karting only a couple of years ago, so he's done so well to go as quickly as he has. But there were other new faces as well who did really well. I think Nikhil Bora, who Roman will know, showed that team has a really good pace this season as well. So Trident looked very strong, and that was another surprise package of the weekend, definitely.
Roman, just a quick question, which I hadn't planned here, but to see Nikhil do so well with his first weekend, does that give you quite a lot of faith that when Trident fix this issue, which they inevitably are going to do before the next race, that you've got the car to get you right to the front?
For sure. I mean, I kind of understood the car was pretty much there after pre-season. The car felt very, very good. FP1, FP2, it felt great. and we was really looking at fighting at the front. Even at the start of quali one, we was very competitive. And then unfortunately, that's where it started to go downhill. But no, he's done a great job. He's extremely fast, very intelligent, and no, he's a great guy, really great guy.
Glad to hear it. And hopefully we'll see another Trident driver joining the podium soon enough. Now, Daniele, I love having a driver and an experienced commentator on, but as I said earlier, I'm most curious to hear from you because from what we've texted about before, I think this is your first visit to Imola anyway, and you're behind the scenes quite literally all weekend, sending photos from behind the podium. Ignoring the racing, because I feel you're doing something that so many of us would love to do, and you only have this experience to journal it for the first time once. How was this weekend for you?
I think the first word that comes to mind is hectic. I mean, every single day you come in at like 8:30 a.m. and leave no sooner than 9 p.m., at least from where I was standing. So it was really tough, but I loved every second of it, honestly. I think you really need to be like a fan first and foremost, because otherwise you're not going to be able to just like continue to stay on top of things from start to finish. One day is tough, 3 days is 3 times as tough. So it's really difficult, but honestly, just working so closely to everything, to the cars, to the drivers, and just being able to absorb as much information as possible is really, I think, the key when starting things out. At least that's what I try to do. And it was honestly great also to work so close to people that have been doing the things I'm starting to do for the past like 5, 10, even 20 years. So it's really, it was really an eye-opener, to be completely honest, because for the first time, I just kind of noticed how this world truly works. Because of course, on TV, and even if you have like access to behind the scenes or something like that, you try to understand what's happening. But on the other hand, once you live it, you truly understand what it means to be working behind the scenes. And honestly, it was one of the best experiences so far in my young life. And I hope to be doing it again pretty soon.
Just ranks just below your first podcast appearance, right?
Of course, yeah. Tied with the second one.
Let's see how it goes before you start saying that. As I said before, Roman, we've got a lot of audience questions to fire at you. So I'll let you off with this as your only other FRECA question for now, because it's your second season, so you have a good idea of what to expect coming up. So now you know how it all works. How do you think you're going to change your approach to 2023 from how it was for 2022?
I think my biggest focus is qualifying. And that's where I really lacked last year. My race pace was great. And to be honest, my pace in general was good last year. But I could just never do all the corners great at once for that qualifying lap. And obviously, you want to qualify first. That's what
I've heard it's advantageous, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I heard that a few times last year. But yes, I've really focused on that, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to show that yet this year. But I'm sure at Barcelona, I'll be able to do that because it's very, very difficult to overtake in these cars now. There's a lot of dirty air. I mean, we get a bit of help from the push to pass, but apart from that, it's quite difficult.
Well, I hope it does work out for you, because if you do start from the front, then you don't have to overtake any cars. It's magic how that works out.
I know, it sounds easy. No?
It sounds so easy. But see Max Verstappen do it. It's got to be easy. But we'll see how that goes. But for the moment, last FRECA word from you, Chris. Your thoughts on the opening round as a whole. You've obviously spoken about FRECA more than a couple of times. And also, did the safety cars in race 2 have you burn through all of your slowdown trivia before the season even gets started in just one race?
I mean, I prepared a lot for that reason because, FRECA is always hectic when we get going. We've got a lot of new drivers out there, big grid of 33, and everyone knows you look at Formula 2 and Formula 3, we've got 16 drivers in those championships now. So the guys will know what they're there to fight for. And, Roman would be the first to tell you that. So, yeah, I mean, overall, though, I think the racing was very good. Imola's not an easy place to overtake at. That's something that many of the drivers, like Roman, told me. Push to pass seemed to work okay, though. Seemed that you could make some moves. And overall, I think it was a really competitive race. We had a real mix. Kaz and Martinez were the two drivers that stood out as the most consistent, but a lot of drivers similar to Roman, really, who had a bit of misfortune that were quick, some that had a good race and a bad race. So, yeah, we're left with going into Barcelona, definitely with a lot of drivers who are going to be keen to go and get pole position there and some wins as well. But, yeah, I think overall what we saw was a really, really competitive field and tough to call a winner out of it, really. I don't know how your poll's going to work, to be honest. I think there'll be some low numbers but yeah, it's really hard to call a favorite in all honesty, or 10 drivers that could go and win.
I'd say Bilinski might do pretty well because I've seen one or two Polish fans kind of go crazy.
Well, what I was going to say is hard to overtake, but I said to Roman yesterday, him and Sammy, it reminded me of watching those two in karting because they were pushing each other through the pack. It was like watching two Formula 4 drivers. And we could see that, they both gained 10 places and I'm sure had some push to pass left. And yeah, it was a shame what happened to both of them, really. But yeah, it did show that overtaking with that system is possible. And every new driver I spoke to, including Martinez, absolutely loved the push to pass system. So I think proving that it works. And we don't have any other major changes to the championship this year. So everyone knows what they're going into. And I think that's helped all the teams as well, particularly the new team, Santalok, trying to get up to speed. Great to have them with us as well. And Emo, who's our youngest ever driver, 16 only a month ago. So great to have him with us. It was good to see a lot of drivers there as well this weekend, Jim. We had Trident had along with them Roman Stanek and, of course, Formula 2, Leo Fornaroli, who's the reigning rookie champion. Dino Beganovic was there as well, just having a little look. He lives local to the circuit. And Nicola Solov was there, actually coaching Ivan Dominguez. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but and I think he finished on the podium as well. So he was there pronouncing. He was there coaching him, which was really good to speak to him, actually. And I did speak to him about FRECA and the jump he's made up into F3. And now he's seen how good some of the drivers are, the FRECA graduates are doing. He sort of even said to me, maybe that season in FRECA might have been a good shout. But yeah, they're all really looking forward to the race in a couple of weeks' time.
I made a joke of it in the intro, Daniele, that we had 60 qualifying sessions and 6 billion drivers. But for my dumb monkey brain, can you please explain the format of Italian F4? Because, my God, it just looked like playing the lottery a little bit to start with how the races and the qualifyings and everything work out. It was not simple.
It wasn't. So, to put it simply, the usual format is like pretty simple. We have 2 qualifying sessions and 3 races, which is kind of standard for Formula 4 racing. But it all starts by saying that every single racetrack has a limit of cars that can drive on a set racetrack at a time. And for Imola, it's 36. And this weekend, we had 37 entries in F4. So what happens is the championship has created a new format from last season. They used it at the Red Bull Ring for the first time in 2022, which basically is a mess. But to put it simply, we split the drivers in 2 qualifying groups, much like Formula Regional, to be honest. And we take the fastest pole sitter from the 2 groups, and he is in P1 in the provisional standings. And then, just like FRECA, the other guys from that group go into P3, P5, P7, and so on, and the other group goes into the even grid numbers. From there, though, we do something completely different, which is divide that standings in 3 racing groups. And so those 3 racing groups race against one another in 3 qualifying races. So we have Group A, Group B, and Group C. And the first race, it's Group B against Group C, and then it's Group A against Group C, and then Group A against Group B, which basically means that we had 3 qualifying races and every driver races twice. So all these races give normal points, so everyone has the same chance of scoring points. And then from there, we make basically a championship standings. And from there, the 36 drivers with the most points advance to the grand final. So it means that this time around, only one driver wouldn't race, and that was Andrea Frosinetti from BVM. But yeah, it's very difficult to follow. It was very difficult to actually understand for us in the first place in the media center, just how the drivers were doing and which drivers were in which groups. So it was pretty terrifying, just trying to work things out. But honestly, it's a format that works when we have a lot of drivers over the limit, but with only one more driver. Like, I spoke to a couple of drivers and team principals, and everyone was like, we're just trying to not be the one who's eliminated, because it's kind of bad to be the only one who's missing from the grand final. But yeah, it was pretty complicated, but everything worked out pretty well.
It's kind of like Italian F4's version of the Hunger Games, but way more
Kind of, yeah.
complicated. Sorry, Chris, what were you going to say?
It's a format we use in karting, basically. That's how it works. When you've got, Roman will tell you, when there's 100 drivers in a category and only 32 can make the final, that's exactly how it works, basically. So a lot of those guys would have been used to it, but I imagine for the teams it would have been a bit scary.
For the fans,
Yeah,
it's just crazy. I wanted to try and figure out what was going on, but I was like, there's so many races, there's so many qualifying, but that actually has helped me. One thing you might not know, but maybe you do, Daniel, when it goes to round 2, is it the championship standings as a whole, or is it a sub-championship standings from the qualifying races for the final?
So for the final, we only take the championship standings from the races we've done at that said racetrack, from the qualifying races. That's the only thing that matters for qualifying for the final race. Then those points get added on, of course, to the drivers' championship and the team standings and the rookie standings, and then we get those championship standings. But for the qualifying races, like for the grand final, only the qualifying races actually matter to decide who goes on to race in the grand final.
And that is why he is our Italian F4 editor, just getting the answer so
It took
well.
me like a couple of months to actually learn it by heart in Italian and then learn it in English afterwards. So it's kind of scary and it was very difficult to understand, but we somehow made it.
Well, I now understand, which is amazing. So your months of work has helped me in 5 minutes. So thank you for that. But more seriously, between Super Formula FRECA and even some rewatching of highlights from F3 and Formula E, that's right, I watched some Formula E, shock horror, everybody. I'll admit adding 4 extra races to my weekend wasn't all that viable for me. So I did see some Italian F4 in the background. Aside from the VARs hitting each other in the final laps and the starting grid having crashes, what else did I miss, Daniele?
It was first of all, very nice weekend of racing. We had we had 4 different winners from the 4 races, which was pretty mental, but kind of expected, with so many drivers being very quick in preseason testing and so many teams, deciding to go to Imola with so many cars. We had Prema with like 7 cars. They needed to have like 2 pit boxes because otherwise they wouldn't fit in one. So it was pretty mental on that side. But starting with Prema, they look strong, of course. I mean, when you talk about FIDE series, you talk about Prema, first of all. They are kind of the main force in the FIDE series ladder. So they were really quick. They had, of course, Hugo Chakwu, which is probably the favorite to win the title so far. But of course, leaving Imola as the championship leader was Red Bull Junior Arvid Lindblad, which we had the chance to interview over the Christmas break for FIDE series, and he looked really strong. He took second place in both his qualifying races and won the grand final pretty comfortably too. He led from turn 1, starting from P2, and then pretty much was never in doubt, talking about winning the race. And he looked really strong. And someone who kind of struggled was, of course, the Formula 4 UAE champion, James Wharton, who was kind of struggling on pace. He made a mistake in quali, and that kind of messed up his whole race weekend. But apart from that, VAR looked really good. I think out of everyone, Brando Badwer was probably the fastest driver out of them all. He looked really strong, of course. Him and Dominguez took themselves out of the race in the final lap, on the final lap of the grand final. So that was pretty mental to watch. I actually didn't see it because I was on my way to the podium, and then I heard the speaker talking about the crash, and I was like, great. I mean, I watched every single lap and nothing happened. And then in the one final lap that I do not watch, I do not get to see everything happens, which is, of course, in clear and perfect Formula 4 style. But yeah, also the last thing I want to say is US racing looked pretty confident and pretty quick. And of course, Kacper Stuka was like one of the quickest drivers. He won the first qualifying race and then had a lot of reliability issues. So he only scored in his first qualifying race, but he took home the 25 points. So I think he's going to be another one to watch out for. But yeah, if Formula Regional is difficult to kind of understand who the favorites are, Formula 4 is just impossible to say who like the top three could be. I think we have 5 to possibly even 10 drivers who can potentially win the championship this season. So it's really exciting, but really difficult to predict.
Really exciting for us. Now, obviously, Chris and Roman, you were also on site. Did either of you get a chance to watch in the Italian F4? Chris, did you enjoy what you did get to see? I know you saw some of it.
I watched some from the stands. Yeah, I saw some of it. We were already left the track because the grand final was on quite late, actually. So I think that was a time where if Roman was probably there, I think the drivers were under Parc Fermé, but anyone else was off catching flights. But I did watch some of the heat races, and out of all of it, just grateful to see that the 2 drivers involved in that incident on the start finish line were okay, Ugo and the other driver. But yeah, no, all of it I watched was really good, actually. And the F4 cars really shift, actually, when you when you watch them trackside. They are quick. I don't know if Roman saw any, but that when I saw it, it looked really good. And Ugo and Arvid stood out to me as the 2 real kind of standout drivers, and Lacourt as well, very quick.
Roman, I saw you nodding a little bit there. How much did you get to see?
We watch a bit on the TV in the truck. Mainly the reason I watch it is to see if they do anything like really special or stands out that I can do in the race. Apart from that, not really. Like Chris said, I left before the grand final was on. I was leaving as they were going out, so I wasn't able to see that. But no, some pretty crazy racing. It's good to watch though because they're so close.
That's enough questions from me because the Feeder Series podcast is for you, viewers and listeners. We're going to move on to the hashtag AskFS part of the podcast. If this is your first time watching or listening, you can get involved by using the hashtag AskFS on Twitter, joining our Discord and using the podcast questions channel, commenting on our YouTube videos, or by keeping an eye out for our Instagram posts and stories. The first question comes from another driver, Mr. Vesti.
Well, for me, the question to the next driver who's on the podcast would be, during a quali lap, what is your focus? Where's your thoughts, and how do you make sure you get the maximum out of your lap?
What a question.
As only a Mercedes driver could ask, right?
I think so. So it's a really difficult question to answer because it's different for every track and every situation. Because you come obviously straight from free practice where you're looking at your driving improvements of, let's say, maybe a couple corners or maybe there's a few. And ideally it's only a couple corners because you don't want to go into quali having to change everything. I do some deep breaths on the main straight to kind of chill because I get quite nervous and things like this. And this helps a lot, and I give some keywords for the corners. So instead of thinking, you need to brake 10 meters later, turn in a bit later and things like this, I just try to say one thing that relates to everything before that I think about. And for me, it's a new thing I've done for this year, and it seems to work really well. And yeah, but I think lots of drivers have different ways of coping with it. I know some. I was speaking to one driver. No, not. I wasn't speaking to this driver, but I was speaking to a driver who knew someone who was singing on the when they was driving. And so I think lots of drivers have different ways of coping with things, and yeah, that's one of the more interesting ones I've heard. But yeah, I guess there's different ways.
Some people sing in the showers, some people sing in the cockpit. Just on your
Yeah.
saying some phrases to yourself before the corners, without giving away your secrets, is there an example that you can talk us through? Like if you go through Variante Alta, what are you thinking? What's this phrase?
I mean, for Imola, I can say for Imola was more of a breaking of T2 and the curbs because you have to be so accurate. And I kind of just you all have reference points where you break, and you can work on these references. So if depending on the wind direction, the grip of the tire, if it's a new tire, used, fresh, whatever. And just going into the corners, I'd just simply kind of say, ac be accurate. And that could be accurate on the braking, the turning, the apex, everything. But I would just already know myself. And maybe it would make no sense to anyone else. But for me, I just know what that means. Or I'd just say something random, but I knew before that word means all of this. And so but that's how I do it. But yeah.
Imagine the Trident engineers thinking he's saying cucumber on the radio. What does anyone know what this means?
Yeah, exactly.
So funny. I love that. That's a brilliant answer. Of that's. I know you said before the podcast started recording. I hope you got some sort of different questions. I'm guessing that is exactly one of those sorts of different questions. So thank you, Fred Vesti, for that. Daniela, you've got the next question. If you'd be kind enough to ask. Next two questions, I think actually is.
Yeah, it's two. Underscore Sid13. I hope I pronounced it correctly. If not, apologies. He asks on Instagram, or they ask on Instagram, how much are you missing Tim this year? And they want to know your favorite UK snack and your favorite Polish snack.
I'll start off with Tim. Tim and I have a really good relationship. We was very good friends last year, but both me, Tim, and Leo as teammates were all very close. We were very good friends, but we were also very competitive, which I think worked very well. So no, I think I miss him. I do miss him, but I guess we're both fighting for the same thing this year, so it's a bit different. And yeah, I'd say for the snack questions, I don't know. It depends if it's the cheat day or no. Because I'm on quite a strict diet, I guess you could say.
For the interest of the podcast, let's go for cheat day to see what the real snacks are. We don't want to hear carrot sticks here.
Yeah. Okay, so if I'm going to McDonald's, not that I do, let's say, I would love to say have a quarter pounder with no cheese because I don't eat cheese. I absolutely hate cheese. And maybe 9 chicken nuggets, barbecue sauce. That for me is that's the way to go. And Malteser McFlurry.
Is this for both UK and Polish snack here? Because I know you have variations of McDonald's between countries, but I presume that's fairly standard, a quarter pounder.
Yeah, it's called different things in different countries. Like when I'm in Italy a lot, and I have to say, can I have a cheeseburger with no cheese? And that's their version out there. So yeah, it's a bit different, but yeah, that's pretty much for everywhere. So it kind of answers both.
Can I have a milkshake? Hold the milk, please.
Yeah, exactly. They always look at me weirdly when I say it, but yeah. got to do what you got to do, I guess.
Oh, not surprised. What answer? I love that. These two questions somewhat tie together. So the first one is from Isa Clopes 431 on Instagram. Sorry for also terrible pronunciation. Who is your biggest inspiration? And we've got Sargent via Discord. Who is your favorite driver of all time? Is he an inspiration to you or she? It might not be the same answer, but potentially it is. And I want to ask this question to both you, Roman, and you first, Chris. Who is your biggest inspiration and who is your favorite driver of all time? And are they an inspiration to you?
So what are we talking, just drivers or it?
Well, the first question from Isaac Lopez, one of these is going to be correct. Who is your biggest inspiration? Doesn't specify a driver. So from your case, maybe the great Murray Walker, I don't know.
I had kind of three people that really like stood out to me. So I'd hate to pick just one, but it wasn't Murray Walker. It was a guy called Ken Walker who commentated in karting. He was the Murray Walker of karting commentary. He did every championship around the world in Europe. And I just used to love listening to him, and I did eventually get to meet him, and he really did help me out. Will Buxton was another. I used to love watching GP2, GP3 when it started. And I guess Alex Jakes is definitely another, because I continued watching those series when he took over, and I thought he did an amazing job. So yeah, I guess those three. In terms of drivers, when I started racing in 2007, there was one man who came onto the scene and did very well since then, and so he was always my biggest inspiration. I don't think I need to give a name.
Roman, I don't know if Mr. Hamilton is your biggest inspiration or potentially his championship rivals for some of these years, Mr. Kubica, but biggest inspiration, favorite driver of all time, and inspiration to you?
It's so hard to say because I have so many for, let's say, to make a complete driver, you know. I think lots of the drivers in Formula One now are very complete, but some have some other qualities, like Fernando Alonso, I think is very incredible. Like you said, Hamilton, but also as an inspiration, Kubica. I think what he's been through and how he coped with it, came back to Formula One and things like this is really incredible and was competitive. So yeah, I can't say one driver. There's really a lot that are so good in so many different things.
Robert Hamilton, so is what I'm getting from this. So amalgamate all.
Yeah, I guess we can we can take that if that makes it easier.
Danielle, you've got another question.
Yes, I do. And Motorsport Matt via Discord would like to know, what do you like the most about the FRECA car?
I'd say the push to pass, to be honest. That's a really cool feature that I've never had in a car before, where you can just press a button and have a bit more power. Because the car's very difficult to drive. It feels quite heavy, and so it's quite difficult in the corners. So I'd say, yeah, my favorite things like the accessories, like the push to pass.
Accessories, it's like you're adding stuff to,
exactly.
Like earrings, nose rings, sunglasses, push to pass, all the same. This one's from Vicky Velekai, I believe the pronunciation is. Again, Chris, I want to hear your answer to this because I imagine you have really good answer to it. But also, Roman, this is for you. But Chris first, what's the most awkward situation that has ever happened to you on a race day?
Oh.
It's a good question, though. I really like that, Vicky. We had Alex Jakes on just to fill a bit of time, give these guys a chance to speak about it. If you haven't listened to a podcast recently, when he's talking about Davide Valsecchi being in his underwear in the commentary booth, which I can imagine is quite an awkward situation. I don't know if you've had that, Chris, the pleasure.
Not quite. No.
Not yet.
No, not quite. That's a really good question. Okay, this isn't a race day, but it kind of is, right? I'm kind of known for this. Like known for not not knowing where things are going to happen sometimes. Like I'm going on a stag do soon, and I didn't know it was where it was until I'd already paid for it. And I told everyone it was somewhere else. I told everyone it was Alicante, and then I realized after I paid it's in Benidorm. I had no idea. I had no idea it was going there. But I'm kind of known for doing this. And I had a really awkward situation once where there was a charity, John Surtees charity race, a kart race that happened every year. They did two of these. One at Buckmore Park, which Roman will probably know, a kart track in the UK, and then they did one at Goodwood, basically. I only knew about the one in Buckmore Park, and I got invited to go down there, or I wanted to go down there to do some business for Karting Magazine, which I was running at the time. This was the one that was happening in the summer at Goodwood, but I only knew about the one at Buckmore Park. So I bought a new blazer and shirt and everything like this. I obviously can't drive, so I had to get the train down there, and got a taxi over. This woman picked me up, and I was telling her all about that I'm going to this charity kart race. I'm going to go meet all these drivers. There was a lot of big name drivers there, and yeah, it's going to be great. And then I turned up to the kart track, and there was absolutely no one there. I was like, what's going on? Like, where's all the karts and everything? And I saw these two guys like putting up banners, and I came over to them in like shoes, blazers. And I said, it didn't look like I wanted to go karting, let's say that. And I said, when's the charity race starting? And they said, oh, mate, you're on the wrong side of London. Like, that's over at Goodwood. I was like, oh, yeah, of course it is. Like that. And just pretended like I knew, basically. I was like, but how things going down here? And I tried to have a conversation with them, and they're like, they were just laughing. They're like, mate, just get out of here. And I was like, all right, yeah, see you later. I called the taxi firm back up, and they all just started bursting out laughing. The woman walked back in the office and was like, is that the guy that I just dropped off? Like, yeah, he's gone to the wrong place. I was like, oh. And she picked me back up. She was like, you idiot. Like that. I was like, I've never even met her. I got home. My dad said, how'd it go then? Did you do much business? I was like, didn't actually go. So, yeah. That's something that's happened to me quite a few times.
It was a race day, just not for you then.
No. Well, I just went to the wrong place, basically. So it's happened to me plenty of time.
Can I add an awkward story?
Please do.
That I've just thought of, but it's quite it's more awkward for my dad, I have to be honest. Maybe you don't know, but my dad's quite a character of a track.
Yeah, he is.
So we was at Donington Park for the British F3 race, and me and my teammate at the time, Frederick Lubin, were like best friends, and we thought it'd be funny to clamp his car in the car park. And my dad's very protective of his cars and things like this, and he'll just walk really just to go look at it, make sure it's okay, and things like this. And in the morning, he saw the clamp was on his car, and he went up to the offices at Donington Park and went to the manager of the track and was absolutely going off at the manager and saying that all the stuff that he was going to do, and was absolutely going crazy at everyone, and anyone could have been like attacked. And yeah, and then afterwards we was coming, he then walked past Arden, the team I was with, and Gary Ward, the team manager. We told him about it, and my dad said, right, Gary Ward, who's done this to my car? How dare they? I'm gonna find them, and it's not gonna be good. And he was like, well, I'm not saying names, but you don't have to look too far. And there's me and Frederick coming out of our motorhome from one side of the paddock, and I'm really not joking, to the other side, we hear a scream. And it's like, boys, do you know what a life, what do you say? A life expectancy is, or something like this. And from all the teams, everyone heard it. And we then got there, and we admitted it was us, but he had to then go apologize to the track manager and everyone. And to everyone he went to, yeah, it was pretty funny. We did the same with his motorhome. unplugged the electricity, and he went mad at the motorhome company, and then the motorhome company went mad at another company because they thought they sabotaged his motorhome. And it was just me and Frederick that pulled the electrics out. So yeah, it was not good, but yeah, it was a bit awkward for him, shall we say,
I
not
don't think
so
it was
much
awkward for
us.
you, but that was a really, really good story.
Joe Aiden on Instagram asks, what is your favorite livery?
Uh, Out of FRECA,
There's
F3,
no
F2, F1.
specification, which means you have free reign to say anything.
Okay, from FRECA, I maybe it sounds biased, but really I think the Trident livery is incredible.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah. But no, really I think it looks very good. But there's another car in FRECA. Actually, they have them in F2 as well. Um, what team?
Charlie
That
Burt
has the
says,
AIX livery,
Oh,
the
Charlie
bronze
Verse,
one.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think that looks really cool. The bronze livery
yeah.
uh
He actually said to me
stands
some of the
out.
team. He said some of the some people didn't like it, but I thought it looks mega actually.
It
Um,
looks really cool, I thought.
to kind of go behind the scenes a little bit, we actually have in our feeder series WhatsApp chat this very conversation happening just beforehand. And it does seem a very Marmite sort of livery that I personally think it looks good. And I think it looks good on the PHMs in F2. And I heard you say on commentary as well, Chris, that it looks good. But then I've had a lot of
mm,
people saying, why have they got a brown livery? And I suspect, because I've seen photos on Instagram stories that look different from the broadcast. And I suspect it's one of these ones that probably looks even better in real life because it looks more like a bronze color than a brown color. Is that right?
yeah, and it changes. It changes in the sun as well. You know, when he comes down to Minerali in the shade, it changes completely and it looks really really nice. So and it helps me tell them which one's which in that team because they're all different. So uh, so yeah, but I think it looks great, and I think Zagazetta's looks nice as well. To be fair.
But where we go, we've got a question from Racing for a Girl via Instagram and emi.li via Instagram. Also kind of tied together. So, Roman, what do you want to achieve this year? Is what Racing for a Girl asks. And Emi asks, what is your main goal this season?
I mean, I'm a racing driver, right? And this is my passion. So I want to win the championship. But it's a lot easier said than done. And Trident is a second year team. So we haven't got, say, all the knowledge of the big teams, Premier, ART, R Race, and all of these that have been in this championship for so long. Um, but really, I feel confident this year with the car, myself, and everything. So when we get a weekend with not so much bad luck, I guess we can get a realistic view of what we can achieve. But until then, I really can't say because I haven't done a qualifying or a race yet. So uh, yeah, I'm not too sure. But no, I want to win, obviously.
Coldplay McPin fan. I should have pronounced it correctly, but I don't know. So apologies if I made any mistakes. He asks, what was your main takeaway from your time in British F3/GB3?
Um, I guess kind of never give up in a way because I had a really difficult start to the season. I was actually in Formula 4 and it was really not going as as it should have done, let's say. And so I made the switch to British F3 and actually mentally I was feeling I don't want to say depressed, but I was finding it very difficult at that time because I gave so much and then went into British F3 and it was an incredible second half of the season with doing no testing, nothing, never driving the car. So yeah, kind of never give up and there's always there'll be an opportunity and you just have to maximize it.
Just a quick question, and I know I always say this, like, I want to get through them all, and I end up asking more questions, but I always get curious. Do you feel like you have just some cars that click? Because I'm thinking of Arte Leclerc, who in F2 at the moment is looking like a driver that I didn't see in F3 for the last couple of years. Do you find that when you went into away from the British F4 car that you're like, now this is a car I can get behind, and you start getting podiums?
Yeah, for sure. The British F3 car suited me so well. It was just very fast through the corners, naturally aspirated. So you got all the power at once. It suited my driving a lot. And I'd say it's a bit more like the FIF3 car in comparison. And then jumping to the FRECA where it was a lot heavier. I had a turbo and things like this. It didn't suit me so much, but the thing is, to be a great driver, you need to drive everything, right? So I had to adapt to that then quite quickly and things like this. So yeah, but for sure some cars suit some drivers better.
Brilliant answer. Last few questions. And so Stein MS34 Supremacy by Discord. What is the biggest difference between driving a race car with a roof like the Ginetta compared to driving a car without a roof like a single seater? And Chris, did you drive tin tops as well at some point?
I tested a Ginetta Junior once, and it was on the shootout day. And I was there as a journalist, so when I got in and had a bit of a tash, the guy looked at me like, "How old are you?" And genuinely asked me that. I was with Jody Fannin. I don't know if you know of him, but yeah, and he made me spin. Like he was like, "Go flat out," and then I'm full 360, and he was just laughing his head off. So yes, so I tested one and yeah, a few single seaters as well.
Well, Roman, your answer, the main difference.
The first difference I found when I went from a Ginetta to British F4, which I tested with Arden, I was so low down and I felt so like the car is mine. It was a really weird feeling and I felt a lot more vibrations through just the whole car. And it was a really incredible feeling actually. And it just feels a lot more like you are part of the car. I think because you're in the middle, you're so low down, it's kind of around you and it's very difficult to say, but also you have a lot more downforce in general, for most categories at least. And yeah, it's a lot more agile and things like this. So these are the big differences I found for me.
We've got we've got three questions now, which I think we can probably one answer. So one word answer, should I say? Now, Daniele, you've got the first one and the third one. If you take us away.
Of course. So Hernando Alonso wants to know from Discord, if Poland play against England in the World Cup, which team do you support?
I'm so sorry, Roman.
I can't say any.
You don't like football. You don't like football.
Yeah, I should have thought about that. Yeah, I guess in one way it's like a win-win either way. No, it's you take a win in each way, but no, to be honest, I can't say one. It's quite split. So yeah. That is such a difficult question that I don't know how to answer, and yeah.
Just decide at half time.
Oh, yeah.
Decide at half time. Yeah.
I feel you might have this a few times, so I'm going to let you take my I don't like football answer, then you are sorted for life.
Yeah, I'll remember that one. I'll remember that one.
Now, this question is the most popular question we have, really, and it opens up a lot. But you've already said something earlier which makes me worry for your sake that you don't want to alienate Polish people or British people, or English people, should I say. Ashley via Discord, what is your favorite type of cheese?
I hate cheese. I can't stand it. No, really, I can't go near it. Even if it's near me, I will be sick. I absolutely can't stand it.
I respect the double down to really hammer home how much you hate it. But wow, you have lost all of the fans of the Feeder Series podcast for this moment.
Yeah.
What if you had to have one as a forfeit, which one would it be? Or would it just not be any?
What do you mean?
Like if they were like, oh, you have to have just one of them because I know you lost.
If you don't finish on the podium, you're gonna have some cheese. What cheese?
Yeah.
But I don't even know what types of cheese. I don't even want to think about it. This is really horrible.
I'll have a cheeseburger without the cheese, thank you. Chris, if we were to ask you the same question, your favorite type of cheese?
Yeah.
I don't actually know, to be fair. I'll try a few different ones. When we're eating, I just take whatever really. But I honestly couldn't tell you which ones they were. So
just eating the cheese in front of you.
I don't know, honestly.
Danielle, did we ask you this last time? I can't remember if you were on the podcast.
I don't think so.
Please save us.
I mean, I might be biased, but whatever comes from Italy, honestly. I mean, we have so many good ones. I think a popular answer, if I recall correctly, is burrata.
Very popular.
If I remember correctly, which is like really good. But if I have to choose one outside of Italy, probably like camembert from France, which is like really, really good, and you can basically eat it with anything. I really like cheese, by the way, so I can kind of save everything right now for like I can take all the bars away from Roman.
The amount of people who have had this cheese question, Roman, is higher than you'd imagine. So when you said before we started recording, I just would like some questions which aren't the same, I was like, well, I know this is not going to be the same as normal. Yeah. To really hammer that home, Daniele's going to ask you this next question.
Yeah, and Siam Parfait 16 wants to know who is the strongest in arm wrestling between you and your teammates, Owen and Nikhil.
Oh, we've got to do this. We actually we will do this. Look, I'm gonna say me because I'm gonna believe in myself, but I'm sure they're gonna say themselves too. Look, who knows? Who knows?
I tell you what, Paddock Live next time we'll do it.
Yeah, okay, Paddock Live. We'll do it then. Yeah, let's see.
I love this. Go to Spain for this one sole reason. Yeah. Finally, this is a question I'm going to ask all three of you. And I know Daniele's seen it already, but this is probably the best question I think we've actually had. And we've had really good questions in AskFS. Jedlin12 via Discord. Let's answer these. Roman, Daniele, Chris. Would you rather fight one kibitza-sized duck or 100 duck-sized kibitzas? Have you had that question before, Roman?
What?
What? Wait, you've got to say that again.
Would you rather fight one kibitza-sized duck, so a duck that's the size of kibitza? It's a duck the size, like a normal duck the size of kibitza, or 100 duck-sized kibitzas?
What?
I don't even know what to say.
Logically, just talk us through your thought process here.
I'm just trying to imagine it.
Good 6 foot duck, you've got to fight that. Or you turn around
there's
and
100 screaming Robert Kubitzas.
Exactly, but they're all duck-sized. Which one would you rather fight? It's a simple question. You must have had this all the time.
But can they fly? Can they fly or no?
I don't know this hypothetical.
That makes a difference. It makes a difference. Because like pigeons are scary. Like pigeons are scary. And if they can fly, that's scary.
Let's say yes to see if this makes any difference to your answer. Because you've got a massive duck here that's 6 foot that might fly. Or you've got 100 duck-sized kibitzas who are kibitza, so they can't fly. I like how you're really thinking this through as well.
This is like the toughest question I think I've ever been asked. I'm trying to picture it though. I'm just really trying to picture it. I think I'd maybe I'd take like. I reckon I could take down the big duck. Like,
of all the phrases I did not expect to have on the podcast this year
yeah,
or ever.
yeah, I maybe should have said that a bit differently. I'll take the Kubica-sized duck.
Well, I can't believe we've spent this long thinking of such a hypothetical question. I think, Daniele, I said you would be the next person to answer this brilliant question.
For me, I think it's stupidly easy. I'd 100% take the 100 duck-sized Kubicas. I mean, can you imagine like a 6-foot duck that flies towards you? Like, no, thank you. I can't imagine that being like something that I would like to take down. So, no, definitely the 100 duck-sized Kubicas for me.
And Chris, you've had the longest time to think about this.
I mean, it's got to be the 100 duck-sized Kubitzas, right?
Yeah.
With commentary, live streams, like. And to be honest, more than anything, I just want to see what that would look like and what that would sound like as well.
Let them race,
yeah.
and we'll commentate on it.
You know, I mean, that would look terrifying. So I think just if there's a way to go down, I think that would be, that'd be a hell of a way. I mean, I just want to know what it would look like and sound like, though, more than anything, because I think that would be, that would be it'd be very interesting.
Jed and 12, thank you so much. Now, Roman, can you just confirm that this is a standard sort of questions you've been, and like I said before, you didn't want to have standard questions. Has these been the standard questions that you were worried about?
Let's say they've been different questions to what I've been asked before. But I quite like it. I have to be honest. So, yeah.
Well, with that PR-friendly answer, that's all the time we have this week. Thank you to everybody for watching and listening to us inane rambling about the most ridiculous hypothetical question I can imagine. If you'd like to have your question asked on a future episode, use the hashtag AskFS on Twitter. Drop any questions below if you're watching on YouTube. Respond to our Instagram stories or posts, or let us know what questions you have on your mind on our Discord. Look for the podcast questions channel. And if you are watching on YouTube, dropping a like on the video, leaving a comment, and subscribing to the channel all really helps us out. And why don't you just let us know in the comments, what would you rather fight? The ridiculous 100 duck-sized Kubitzas or the Kubica-sized duck? I can't remember the question. If you are listening, leaving a review on the podcast platform you're listening on is greatly appreciated. And finally, check out feederseries.net for more Feeder Series insight and follow Feeder_Series, FS Americas, and Feeder Series Now on Twitter. You can find the links to all of those, plus the Twitter accounts for myself and everyone else on the podcast in the YouTube description or podcast show notes. Until next time, we'll be fighting lots of tiny little Kubicas, and we've been the Feeder Series podcast. Goodbye.